Hi, welcome to City Scene with Mayor Mike Cahill. I'm your host, Walt Kosmowski. And Mayor Mike, welcome to the show.
Hi, Walt. Good to see you.
Good to see you back in the studio. Well, now that the snow, the mighty snow, has melted, we're all seeing a lot of activity, a lot of projects starting to commence in the city. And to start off with, let's talk about maybe one of the most visible ones because of the trees being cut down and everything. Let's talk about the Brimble Avenue Interchange project and the connector road between Brimble and Sawyer. Maybe you can start us off with that.
Sure. Thanks, Walt. So as we sit here, April 24th, I guess it is, the work has started. It started about 2 weeks ago on the city's project to rebuild the connector road. When you get off the highway at exit 19, Sawyer Road, Brimble Ave, to rebuild that connector road in a stretch of Sawyer and Brimble. We've had city workers out for the last couple of weeks along Brimble, kind of up towards the cemetery and across from Cycles 128. And the purpose of that work has been to move a 24-inch water main that services a good part of the city with our drinking water coming from Wenham Lake. That water main has, for years, been sitting just as you head down towards Montserrat from the highway on Brimble. It sits to the right on the other side of the ledge. And we need to move that into and underneath the street because the project will be blasting that ledge and widening the road a bit.
Right.
So that's some prep work the city's doing. We're doing it internally to save on costs for the overall project. At the same time, the general contractor for the whole project has started, and they have been clearing trees and brush as you get off 128 and that the kind of the little infield there between the highway and the connector road. And that's in preparation for the next stage. They'll be doing some blasting, and then you'll start to see movement in the road as they start to grade and set the road in place that they'll be building. They will be building a new connector road between Sawyer and Brimble with a roundabout at either end.
Right.
Whereas currently you have T intersections with stop signs and people needing to take left turns,
left-hand turns
across lanes of traffic. Correct. And so this project will replace those. This project has nothing to do with the proposal by the CEA group to build Whole Foods, right? That's a different project. People have been asking me all week, boy, that was quick. The CEA, they're already building Whole Foods. No. They're not building Whole Foods. The city is building the new roadway that we collectively as a city need for traffic flow throughout that whole corridor to help jumpstart and support economic development on Sawyer Road, Tozer Road, that short stretch of Brimble Ave that's commercial industrial, Otis Road, which is the dirt road by Cycles 128 out to the old dump, and Dunham Road out to the music theater.
Right.
That's what this project is about, is making sure that we can handle traffic flow throughout that area and supporting increased economic investment in those areas.
Now, and of course, we've been asked getting questions about that same question as why this is already the shopping center project, and it's really not. But the other question we get asked is, in building the new connector with the two roundabouts at either end, will people still, during the whole process, be able to use the old connector, or will there be a time at which no traffic will be able to get by there?
As I have understood it, and as I keep being told, there will be traffic able to flow through there at all times.
At all times.
Yeah. I'm sure there'll be times when it's one lane and there'll be some delays as people wait to be waved through, but there will be traffic movement throughout there at all times.
And I think that's good news for those of us.
If we find differently, I'll let you know right away, but that's the plan.
Well, I know a lot of people have asked me that, and of course I use that road every day coming from home to BevCam.
As do I, every day, in and out of my house. Yeah.
Now, I also understand, and I think our audience would love to hear you talk about this, is that you've formed a project committee for this particular situation. So could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, we have done with the Rantoul Street 1A project as well. We've put together a committee of neighbors, property and business owners through the commercial industrial stretch, representatives from the school district, and because we have North Beverly, Hannah High School, and Briscoe all
pretty close,
around that set of intersections. And also the relevant city agencies. So group will be convening for the first time, I believe, on April 30th. And it's just, it's an attempt to make sure that we keep everybody informed and up to date on what's happening with the project at different points along the way. And we hear concerns, from the neighborhood, from businesses along that way, as I said, from the school department, so that we can head off any problems as we're doing the work.
Yeah.
The job itself is meant to be a one-year job. It may well be that there's some final touches that need to happen next spring, but the bulk of the work will be done this calendar year.
Yep. Okay, so by the end of December 31st of this year, that connector should be finished. That's what you're saying.
Well, I'm not saying all the work will be done. We hope it will, but we're seeing probably next spring will be part of the project time as well. As I said, the plan is for the road to be, passable and usable at all times. And I think whatever point we get to by winter, if it's not all done, there'll be an effort to, made to be sure that it's kind of closed up for winter, so that the work is closed up,
right,
so that the road is fully
yeah,
functional through the winter, even if there's more work to finish next spring.
Got it. Now, getting back to this project committee, Mike, how many folks do you expect on it, and have all the seats been spoken for, or can people still put their hand up if they want to be part of this?
Yes and yes.
Okay.
I mean, we've reached out to some of the property owners and neighbors from each of the neighborhoods around there, and we've identified who's going to be on the committee. If somebody else wants to be on the committee, all they need to do is call me. They can either take a seat at the table, or they can just come to and attend and listen in at meetings.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things. You never want a committee that's so large that you can't get things done.
Sure.
But you want to make sure that that you have a voice for every perspective at the table.
Sure,
so we'll work to make sure that's the case. If we've missed a viewpoint or a direction, then we'll surely add somebody to provide that.
Mm-hmm. And I have to say, I've heard a lot of people in the community as I go about with BevCam who have complimented this administration, because you did make a campaign promise about transparency in all these different projects, and you have certainly kept true to that in making sure that these hearings are open to the public, that the public knows about what's happening, what kind of decisions are being made. And I think people feel good about that. They feel that they can be a part of the situation, and that viewpoints, as you've just pointed out, viewpoints aren't ignored. So,
thanks.
Kudos,
Thanks.
kudos for that. And you touched a little bit before on the Route 1A Rantoul project. Tell us a little bit about that. How's that going?
It's going well. One of the things, when people asked me last year, what surprised you about the job? The Rantoul Street 1A project surprised me. I thought when I walked into office that we were ready to break ground last year. It wasn't quite that way. There were a lot of steps that needed to be taken mostly with Mass Department of Transportation and the federal agencies that they work with. But it's been a lot of work to kind of keep it moving. We were able to get it advertised last fall by the state. I mean, it's their job. Where the Brimble Ave project is the city's job, we're building a road that the state will own.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit of a different kind of a job. This one, the state's building the road because it's a state road. Route 1A is a state road. So the project is actually from the bottom of Rantoul Street by the Beverly-Salem Bridge, the full length of Rantoul, and then at Gloucester Crossing it picks up Cabot Street,
right,
and turns towards the north and the west, right, and goes as far as the Dairy Queen and the railroad crossing there. That's 1A. So 1A is Rantoul Street, and then you turn left and it becomes Cabot, all the way up past Henry's, where it kind of bears right and heads down towards North Beverly Plaza, Nick's Roast Beef, and out to the Wenham line.
Yeah.
This project that we're talking about is Beverly-Salem Bridge to the Dairy Queen and railroad crossing right there. We have been pushing and pushing for the state to get the job awarded by April, so that they could vote at their April board meeting, they being the Department of Transportation's board, to approve the award of the contract so that they could have shovel in the ground by the end of May. Mm-hmm. We pushed, and there was one hiccup there where the potential, construction general contractors had questions about the RFP, and in order to get the questions answered properly so the RFP process could work, they pushed everything back a couple weeks, which meant that they just opened the bid earlier this week. That was Wednesday. which means Mass DOT's board will now have to approve it at their May meeting.
Okay.
Which now means that we're hoping to get shovel in the ground by the end of June. We're still hoping for shovel in the ground by summer. We've effectively lost a month because of that problem where, they missed that April board meeting of the Mass DOT.
Okay.
But I think we're in good shape to be, for the general contractor to be on site and working by summer.
Okay.
And this will be a 2 to 3 year project.
That was going to be my next question,
Yes.
but just so, and I don't want to repeat it, but I just want to be sure that our viewers understand what you just said. Whereas the interchange, the Connector Road project, is being run and bid and managed by the city through contractors. The Rantoul 1A is actually being managed by the state. And they are hiring the contractors and they're managing the project.
Correct.
Right? Okay. And you did say that would be 2 to 3 years. So if it starts in 15, 16, 17, so it could be the summer of 18 or fall of 18, potentially that would potentially be 3 years out.
Yeah, I would say, our goal is to have this done within 3 construction seasons.
Yeah.
And so that's why we've been pushing to get started as early as possible this year.
Yeah.
Which, as I said, we're very hopeful they'll be in the ground working by sometime in June. So my hope is 15, 16, 17 is enough to get this project done. People aren't going to feel the project the whole 3 years unless they're people who drive the whole length of 1A every day. You'll feel it down by the Beverly-Salem Bridge at a certain point. You'll feel it on kind of upper Rantoul. At another time, you might feel it over by Gloucester Crossing. It'll be staged. They won't be doing work the whole length of that corridor at all times. One other quick point, in addition to that length of 1A, they'll also be rebuilding Elliott Street from Rantoul by the Walgreens up to Super Sub. That one little stretch will also get rebuilt as well.
Okay. Okay. Now, let me just change subjects a little bit. Now, I think for those of us who drive around the city, it's hard not to notice that last year there was an awful lot of repaving and redoing of a lot of the streets within the city. So, what's your plan for the coming year, Mike?
Well, it's interesting. We decided last year to put as much money as we could afford to put into roads and sidewalks because there's such a backlog. We know that there are many more roads that deserve to be repaved than we can get to.
Yeah.
But we're trying to do it all in a very, thoughtful way. Several years ago, the city went out and had an outside company develop a system for grading the roads based on their condition, categorizing and grading the roads. And so every road has a grade between 0 and 100. And, we're trying to use that as a starting point. Some roads that maybe aren't as bad as others might jump to the front of the list because there needs to be water or sewer or stormwater drainage work done under the road, and that means the road needs to be dug up anyway.
Yeah.
And so that might have a given road get closer to the top of the list sooner. We are addressing back roads, smaller neighborhood roads as well as main roads, but to a certain extent, a lot of main roads are getting a priority because of the fact that they are more heavily driven at all times. So, those are some of the thoughts that go into it. This year, again, we're able to spend between $2.5 and $3 million when it'll all be said and done. As I try to give you numbers, the City Council appropriated after my request $2.9 million for FY15. Well, FY15 is July 1, 2014 to June 30, 2015. Right. That's different than a construction season, which is within a calendar year. So we keep kind of crossing back and forth.
Yeah.
So some of the work that was approved in the budget we're working with now was done last fall, and some will be done this spring and even into the summer. Well, new work will get started.
Right. No, thank you for that. That's an interesting observation. I think a lot of people don't kind of take that into account when they look at these things. Now, so far we've talked a lot about roads and road improvement, but under infrastructure improvement, that includes more than just roads.
Can we stay with roads for one more minute?
Please.
I just want to let people know a few of the roads that they can expect to see work on this spring. And these are some of the roads that were part of last year's plan, and we're getting to them now. One is Cole Street. Cole Street will have a new sidewalk put in. It's not had a sidewalk, and that's been a real problem for pedestrian safety. A sidewalk put in, and then following on that, repaving. Essex Street from the Montserrat train station to Cole Street We'll similarly have a new sidewalk put in, drainage and paving. Grover Street and Centerville from Essex Street to about Walker Road. That's kind of the old section of Grover.
Yeah.
That'll be redone.
Okay. Because there's only a sidewalk on one side of that street, because I know I travel on Grover a lot.
Right, and there will continue to be a sidewalk on one side. But that's the old stretch of Grover that hasn't been done in quite some time. Woodland Ave in Riles Side, there'll be sidewalk work only done between Woodland and the Ayers Riles Side School. That's been a real concern of all of ours, and parents and grandparents of kids who walk to school. We need a really defined and safe sidewalk in that stretch. Dodge Street will be done from Morningside Drive in North Beverly to the Wenham line. There'll be some work done on Bridge Street and Riles Side. That'll be done internally by our own DPW, doing some ground and inlay work to make that stretch smoother. There's a lot more. Probably, I wish I had it all written in front of me, but people can call City Hall if they have questions about work they're seeing, or if they have questions about their own road. A lot of people do call. Morningside Drive in North Beverly. We've been trying to get to it for the last year plus. We knew that the gas company needed to replace their lines, so we got them to do their work first, and they're finishing up their work. So Morningside will be done this year. In fact, as we see where we're looking to pave, we reach out to the gas company regularly and to the other utilities and say, if you have work to do in the road, do it now, because we're planning to pave it in the next year or two, and we don't want you coming looking to open it back up when it's newly paved, and we want to keep it intact for some time. So that goes on as well.
Right. Well, I'm sure you're making a lot of people happy where there's roads being improved where they live. Let me ask you, this is not intended to be a trick question, but you mentioned this grading ranking system, 1 to 100, and it's kind of prioritizes the order of work. Is it safe to say that if someone calls City Hall and says, when is my street, where is that on the picking order, is that conceivable that you can give that kind of information, or is that going a little too far?
Well, I'll certainly share with them the condition of their roadway according to the report. And then that condition has to be upgraded every year. Of course, after this winter, a lot of roads are in tougher shape than they were last fall. So,
certainly.
But as far as saying to somebody, we can predict for you that it'll be paved in this year.
You can't do that.
We spent, we're spending in this fiscal year just about $3 million in a combination of city and state money, right, for roads, and it's paving about 4.5 miles of roadway. $3 million, 4.5 miles of roadway.
And how many miles of roads are there in the city?
About 150.
Okay, so there you go.
So we have about a $40 million need. It's been a little bit rough with the number, $40 million need. If we were to resurface and put in new sidewalks, and all that in every roadway in the city. And that's why we're trying to dedicate as much money as we can afford to right now to it. Because we know there's a backlog that we're not going to get to all the roads as quickly as people want. There's also a piece of this that's called road preservation. So some roads will be crack sealed. That's when they go out with that kind of black gook, and
very familiar with that.
So the crack sealing helps to preserve and extend the life of a roadway. The grind and inlay work, where parts of a road are in tough shape but other parts are intact, that can also extend the life of a roadway. And so that's work that the DPW does with their budget, with the operating budget that we appropriate each year, and that's outside of the road and sidewalk program we're talking about.
Got it. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about other things, and maybe I can give you one topic that a lot of people are interested in because they spend a lot of time there during the summer, and that's Lynch Park.
Yes.
Tell us about the things that are going on at Lynch Park, Mike.
We are working very hard to try to make sure that by summer, Lynch Park, Dane Street, and Obeah Park, 3 of our main public parks that have beaches, have new bathroom facilities. We've been working at this. As you know, I've run for mayor twice. I've heard a lot of things from people when I've talked with them at their doors and out and about when campaigning. Nothing more so than the need to have improved facilities at our public beaches and parks. So right now at Lynch Park, we've run into some challenges with getting an RFP out and getting a qualified contractor. We finally have one, and the goal is to have the new bathhouse at Lynch Park. If you can picture where the shell is, and then that little bunker-like looking
Right.
bathhouse that we're going to take down and replace with a new one. The plan right now is that will be in place by mid-June. In the meantime, we're planning to, for Memorial Day weekend and the first part of the summertime, we're planning to rent a kind of a high-end temporary bathroom facility like you might see at a graduation or a wedding reception outdoors, as opposed to porta-johns. So we're going to have something that's better than what people are used to right away, and then when the new bathhouse is complete, we'll have a brand new, modern, new, wonderful facility there. In addition, at Lynch, we put in the new playground last fall. And I know a lot of families got up there before the snow and enjoyed it. And then, more and more people are getting down there and enjoying it this spring. So that's a new playground right in the same place where the old playground was, up past the carriage house next to the rec department's office. In addition, there's a new splash pad that's going in. And that, very simply, it's not water country. Some people have feared that we're doing something drastic. It's a modest size footprint that will have 3 separate spots. One, some water features that you can push a button and the water will come out for 30 seconds, whatever, where young kids and toddlers can splash around with their parents. And then one that's for a bit older kids and their parents. And then a third that's for kind of adolescents that includes a couple of water cannons that can only be pointed within a tight radius and staying in the splash pad. But the idea being that kids and families can get out there and splash around and get wet without going in the ocean if it's if that's not convenient for them, or if the ocean might be a bit rough or whatever.
Now let me ask you this: when they redo the bathroom facilities, will that then obviate the need for those little porta potties that are normally there, or will they still be there? Right
now, I mean, typically during the summer, there are no porta potties. It's just that bathhouse. But in the off season, the bathhouse isn't open because it's not staffed either. So there'll be no porta potties when this new bathhouse opens. This will be modern and clean and designed in a way that it'll be easier to keep clean and keep fresh. So that's important.
Wonderful. Now, I also heard that you have got a new scheme for traffic flow around Lynch Park. Can you kind of share that with us?
Yes. So we spent a lot of time with Bruce Doig, the Director of Community Services, and Mike Collins, Commissioner of DPS. The Recreation Commission has had input in this, trying to ensure that people are safe in the park. It really bothers me when you're trying to enjoy the park and there are vehicles driving up and down that stretch of driveway that goes from the parking lot all the way up past the shell, to the carriage house and up that way. So we're going to put in a gate down at the beginning there, and what the plan is to turn the whole traffic flow in the park into a one-way. If you're standing up on Ober Street looking down at the park, to the left, which has not really been a very often used driveway, that will become the entrance for everyone. Coming down that hill, people can enter the main parking lot, and on the way out, they'll go up the right-hand, if you're looking down from the hill, the right-hand driveway, which currently is a two-way driveway. So the plan is to bring everybody in one way, out another. That will also help in the staffing to make sure that we can have this gate in place that public safety, public works, and rec department staff will have the code to and can get in and out. Other than that, if anybody else has a reason to be there, an acceptable reason, then the staff can let them in as needed. And that way we can keep vehicles off that roadway so that families and kids and seniors can all enjoy the park
and they don't have to worry about crossing. Yeah, exactly. Now let me get one more. We're kind of running down in time, and I want to get one more subject in here because a couple of weeks ago it was announced that the city had hired a consultant to look at the stands at Herd Stadium, and I think that the devastating news to a lot of people was that they basically condemned the bleachers there. So tell us about that. What are our options? What needs to happen, or what are the plans that the city has for that?
Well, the bleachers have not been condemned. The law used to be that inspections of things like bleachers were done internally within municipalities. And then the law changed to say it needs to be an independent third party. So this is the first time around that somebody other than the city's own building inspections department did it. So this third party, he gave a report, and he listed out the different ways in which the different safety concerns, like the railings on the stands are too wide, somebody could fall through.
Right.
The gap between the bench you sit on and the seat,
Right.
and the way you put your feet and the next row up, allows for small kids to fall through.
Right.
And these are concerns that I think any of us who've been up in the stands with toddlers
Sure.
and all have. So those are some of the safety concerns, and then there are some structural concerns with rusting and whatnot and settling. And the report said, given the cost attendant with all of this, it's recommended that you condemn the stand.
Mm-hmm.
So what we've done is we're taking a good hard look at what it would cost to repair them, whether that cost is worth undertaking, or whether in the end it makes more sense to tear the existing stands down. If we tear them down, then the question is, should we rebuild there?
Sure.
And continue to have football games and other larger events there? Or do we turn our attention to the high school campus and say, maybe it's time that that we
Right.
create a stadium at the high school so that we can have football, lacrosse, field hockey, soccer, band competitions, whatever it may be, right on campus. So those are conversations that need to happen. In the meantime, we won't be able to make those decisions or make any needed repairs quickly enough to hold graduation there.
Right.
So we've been talking with the superintendent, the high school principal. I know the principal has been speaking with the leadership of the senior class, and they're looking at at what they might do instead.
Mm-hmm.
So beyond that, then we'll have to look ahead to next fall and see what we do with our home football games, because that's the
Sure.
the real main use of Herd in the fall. So there's a lot to work through there, and we're working on it. There's an engineering company that did a study for the city some years back of the condition of the stands, and we're having them come in and update their earlier findings
Sure.
to help us gauge what the cost will be and what our options are.
Okay, good. Now, we just have a very short amount of time left, but Mike, can you kind of give us a quick summary in your view of some of these infrastructure projects and what's happened, what is happening, and what people might expect in the future?
Well, people will they're already starting to see a lot of evidence of road work, and they'll see more and more, and we'll work hard to make sure that that everything is done right and that traffic can keep flowing. But I ask people to try to plan ahead when they know that there's active heavy construction going on one of the roads they may be regularly
Sure.
using, because this is the season. All of the road work really needs to happen between April and November. And a bit later of a start this year because we've had to get through the winter and so forth and get to where it's okay to get into the road and do work. In addition, I mentioned Lynch Park and I mentioned the other bathrooms. Are we missing anything in terms of infrastructure work right now? Well, as I said earlier, the Rantoul 1A project will start, and we don't know right now what the staging will be. Once that general contractor is hired by the state, we'll sit with them immediately and look through the project and try to stage work in a way that makes sense to
minimum
to
disruption.
residents and businesses
Yeah.
along the way and the flow of traffic.
Yeah.
So yes, now the middle school project I'll touch just quickly on. We can talk about that next time around more in depth. We're moving well along on the project. We've entered the schematic design phase. By the end of September, the plan is to nail down with the state what the basic design looks like and what the cost parameters are, and reach an agreement with the state on the total cost for the project and who will pay what. We're working hard to try to make sure the state picks up as much of that tab as possible. And that should lead to construction starting on the new middle school by late 2016, early 2017. So that's something to look ahead to.
Yeah.
But a lot of the road work in the meantime will be done, down in that area.
Well, Mike, thank you very much.
Sure. Can I say one last thing?
Absolutely.
One last thing is we're working with the State Department of Transportation. We've identified several intersections that need to be improved and modernized.
Sure.
And we're working to get preliminary engineering work done on those so we can get on the list for state funding. And those intersections are the Nick's Roast Beef, Route 1A intersection,
Right, okay.
the Henry's intersection,
Right.
the intersection at the foot of the Beverly Salem Bridge. Those three are all along Route 1A.
Yeah.
And then also the intersection by the corner of McKay and Balch, right across from the golf and tennis by the McKay School. And the intersection coming out of Ryleside down at the bottom of Bridge Street at River near the bowler mat.
Okay.
So those are intersections we've identified as problematic and needing to be modernized and improved. And they're on the radar, and we'll be pushing those forward. You know, and hopefully in the next few years we'll see construction activity to reconstruct and improve those.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that with us, Mike. And I'd like to just remind our viewers that you have been watching City Scene with Mayor Mike Cahill. I'm your host, Walt Kosmowski. Thank you for joining us.